The great immutable decrees which forever keep order in the infinite realm of manifested life are all based upon the one great principle of creation, love. That is the heart, the source of all, and the very hub upon which existence in form takes place. Love is harmony, and without it, in the beginning of a form, that form could not come into existence at all. Love is the cohesive power of the universe, and without it, a universe could not be. In your scientific world, love expresses itself as the attractive force between the electrons. It is the directive intelligence which wills them into form, the power which keeps them whirling around a central core, and the breath within the core that draws them to it. The same thing is true of each vortex of force everywhere in creation. A central core, and the electrons whirling around it form an atom. This core of love is to the atom what the magnetic pole is to the earth, and what the spine is to the human body. Without a central core, or heart center, there is only the unformed, universal light, the electrons filling infinity and whirling around the great central sun. The electron is pure spirit, or light of God. It remains forever uncontaminated and perfect. It is eternally self-sustained, indestructible, self-luminous, and intelligent. If it were not, it could not and would not obey the law, the directing activity of love. It is immortal, ever pure, intelligent, light energy, and the only real, true substance out of which everything in the universe is made, the eternally perfect life essence of God. Interstellar space is filled with this pure light essence. It is not dark and in chaos, as has been the ignorant, limited concept of puny human intellects. This great sea of universal light that exists everywhere throughout infinity is constantly being drawn into form and given a quality of one kind or another, according to the way the electrons are held around a central point or core by love. The number of electrons which combine with each other in a specific atom is the result of and determined by conscious thought. The rate at which they whirl around the central core is the result of and determined by feeling. The intensity of the drawing and whirling motion within the central core is the breath of God, and therefore the most concentrated activity of divine love. Speaking in scientific terms, it would be called centripetal force. These are the determining factors which make the quality of an atom. Thus, you will see the atom is an entity, a living, breathing thing created or brought into existence by the breath, the love of God, through the will of the self-conscious intelligence. In this way, the Word is made flesh. The machinery that self-conscious intelligence uses to accomplish this manifestation of its being is thought and feeling. Destructive thought and discordant feeling so rearrange the ratio and rate and speed of the electrons within the atom that the duration of the breath of God within the pole is changed. The duration of the breath is decreed by the will of the consciousness using that particular kind of atom. If that conscious directing will is withdrawn, the electrons lose their polarity and fly apart, seeking their way back intelligently, mind you, to the great central sun, repolarizing themselves. There they receive love only. The breath of God is never-ending, and order, the first law, is eternally maintained. Some scientists have claimed and taught that planets collide in space. No such thing is possible. To do so would be to throw the entire plan of creation into chaos. It really is fortunate indeed that the mighty laws of God are not limited to the opinions of some of the children of earth. It does not matter what any scientist, mundane or otherwise, thinks. God creation is ever moving forward, and expressing more and more perfection. The constructive thought and harmonious feeling within a human mind and body are the activities of love and order. These permit the perfect ratio and speed of the electrons within the atom to remain permanent, and thus they stay polarized at their particular point in the universe, as long as the duration of the breath of God within their core is held steady by the will of the directing self-conscious intelligence using the body in which they exist. In this way, the quality of perfection and the maintenance of life in a human body is always under the conscious control of the will of the individual occupying it. The will of the individual is supreme over his temple, and even in cases of accident, no one leaves his body temple until he wills to do so. Very often, pain in the body, fear, uncertainty, and many other things influence the personality to change its decisions concerning what it has willed in the past. But everything that happens to the body is and will always be under the control of the individual's free will. To understand the above explanation concerning the electron and the conscious control the individual has through his thought and feeling to govern the atomic structure of his own body is to understand the one principle governing form throughout infinity. When man will make the effort to prove this to himself, or within his own atomic flesh body, he will then proceed to master himself. When he has done that, all else in the universe is his willing co-worker to accomplish whatsoever he wills through love. Whoever makes himself willingly obedient under the law of love has perfection in his mind and world permanently maintained. Unto him and him alone does all authority and mastery belong. He only has the right to rule because he has first learned to obey. When he has obtained obedience from the atomic structure within his own mind and body, all atomic structure outside of his mind and body will obey him also. Thus mankind through thought and feeling has the power, each individual within himself, to rise to the highest or sink to the lowest. Each one alone determines his own pathway of experience. By conscious control of his attention as to what he allows his mind to accept, he can walk and talk with God face to face, or looking away from God become lower than the animals, sinking his human consciousness into oblivion. In the latter case, God flame within him then withdraws from its human habitation. After aeons of time, it tries a human journey once again into the world of physical matter, until final victory is accomplished consciously and of its own free will. I told them of the limitless possibilities which Saint Germain had shown me were before mankind for accomplishment whenever it is willing to accept the great God presence within every individual as the directing and accomplishing power. The buyer of the mine asked me why I used the word acceptance so often, and I recalled the words Saint Germain had used in explaining it to me, for he said, "Even in the outer activity of your life, if you purchase a thing or are offered something marvelous and perfect, if you do not accept it, it would be impossible for you to use or have the benefit from it. So it is with the great God present within us. Unless we accept that our life is God life, and that all power and energy we have with which to do anything is God power and God energy, how can we have God qualities and accomplishment in our world? As sons of God, we are commanded to choose whom we shall serve, the mighty presence of God within us or the outer human self. The gratification of the outer human appetites and sense demands has one and only one result: misery and destruction. All constructive desire is really the God self within pushing perfection forward into the use and enjoyment of the outer self. The great energy of life is flowing through us constantly. If we direct it to constructive accomplishment, it brings joy and happiness. If directed to sense gratification, there cannot be anything but misery as a result, because it is all the action of law and impersonal life energy. Keep before the outer activity of your mind the constant reminder that you are life, God in action in you and your world. The personal self is continually claiming things and power of its own, when the very energy by which it exists is loaned it by the God Self. The outer personal human activity does not even own its skin. The very atoms of its body are loaned to it by the supreme God Presence from the great sea of universal substance. Train yourself to return all power and authority to the great glorious God flame which is your real self, and the source from which you have always received every good thing. We talked until 2 o'clock in the morning, and then I had to suggest we retire. No one wanted to sleep, but I said to them, "You will sleep in the arms of God." And the next morning they were surprised to realize how quickly they had dropped off to sleep. We were up at 7 and on our way to Phoenix. The recording was completed, and I explained